Most quarterbacks are judged by wins, but for Shadur Sanders, everything changed with a loss. Not just any loss, a brutal 6-8 smackdown in front of his home crowd, the kind of game that usually buries a rookie's confidence and restarts the franchise's quarterback search. But somehow, this didn't feel like the end. Because while the Browns fell apart around him, dropped passes, blown snaps, coaching chaos, Sanders stood firm. No excuses, no finger-pointing, just poise, accountability, and a quiet fire in his voice. And in Cleveland, that's rare. This wasn't the story fans expected, but it might be the one they needed, because beneath all the wreckage, one thing became clear. Shadur Sanders just proved he might be the quarterback the Browns have been waiting for. It was supposed to be his moment. Shadur Sanders, under the lights, starting for the Cleveland Browns at home, a rookie with legacy in his blood and something to prove. Fans called it a fresh start. Analysts circled it on their calendars. Social media buzzed with anticipation. On paper, everything aligned. The Browns had just pulled off a gritty win over the Raiders. Momentum was shifting. The lights were on, the crowd was loud, and Sanders was finally getting his shot. But by the time the dust settled, the only thing louder than the crowd was the silence. Final score, 26-8. Hope gone in the wind. This wasn't just another Browns loss. It was a meltdown. From the opening kickoff, things felt off. The offense looked confused. The play calling veered from aggressive to bizarre. The O-line, like wet paper against the 49ers' relentless front. Even the crowd couldn't believe what they were watching. Turnovers, dropped passes, missed blocks, head-scratching decisions on fourth down inside their own territory. It was a disaster reel unfolding live on national television. And right in the middle of it all, Shadur Sanders still standing. A rookie quarterback making only his second NFL start against one of the most complete defenses in football was not supposed to carry this team. He wasn't supposed to fix the drops, control the play calling, or stop the special teams from imploding. But that didn't stop the pressure from falling directly on his shoulders, and the criticism followed. Because this wasn't just about being a fifth-round pick. This wasn't even about being the guy playing while the franchise falters. This was about the last name on his jersey. Because when you're Deion Sanders' son, they don't just expect you to perform, they expect you to dominate immediately. The moment he stepped on the field, the bar wasn't set where most rookies see it. For Sanders, it might as well have been touching the sky. Browns fans wanted the fairy tale debut, a breakthrough moment, a coronation, not just a competition. The guy from Colorado, the highlight reel maker, the son of primetime, finally stepping into the big leagues to silence every doubter. But instead, what they got was crushing reality. And the worst part? It didn't even feel fair. Because the mistakes, the breakdowns, the decisions that unraveled the Browns on game day, most of them had nothing to do with Sanders. And yet he wore each one like it was his fault. It's easy to kill a quarterback over turnovers, to demand perfection when your team is spiraling. But this wasn't your typical quarterback scenario. Late in the third quarter, disaster hit. 4th and 1. Stefanski dials up a direct snap to the tight end, yes, a tight end from their own 32-yard line. The snap hits the turf, and San Francisco pounces. A few plays later, touchdown, 49ers, welcome to the NFL. And just when Cleveland desperately needed a spark, special teams fumbled it literally. A muffed punt deep in their own territory. Another short field touchdown given away. By the time Shedeur even had a chance to mount a comeback, the 49ers were practically dancing in the end zone. And social media? Already writing his obituary. But here's the thing, that game might have told fans what the Browns are not. But it revealed something about Shadur Sanders that's far more important. He didn't flinch. No sideline tantrums. No yelling at teammates after blown blocks. No finger-pointing after Jerry Jeudy's drops, or the coaching mistakes, or the special teams blunders. Just a young quarterback taking hits, staying composed, and owning his role even when the disaster around him wasn't his fault. And that stunned a lot of people, because Cleveland, a city starving for stability at quarterback, has seen this movie before. Young guy lights it up for a game, falls apart the next. Franchise resets, repeat. But this time, felt different. Sanders wasn't polished. He didn't throw for 300 yards. He wasn't perfect. But you know what he did do? He showed something this team hasn't seen in years. Poise under pressure. Not the kind that looks good in a highlight clip. The kind that survives when everything else collapses. The kind that builds credibility in the locker room. The kind that says, yeah, I'm young, but I'm here to lead. And for every drop of hope that spilled out onto that field with each mistake, Sanders found a way to pour a little bit back in. That's why, after the game, Kevin Stefanski didn't hesitate. No long explanation. No hedging. Who's starting next week? Shedeur, he said. That's simple, because sometimes it's not the box score that tells you what kind of player you've got. It's the way they carry themselves when the house is burning down and they don't run. And while the team collapsed around him, that calm became crystal clear. Even the fans who once doubted him felt it. This rookie wasn't just playing, he was showing signs of something Cleveland hasn't had in a while. A leader. When everything around you is falling apart, you only have two choices. Fold, or stand still in the storm. Most rookies fold. They panic when the sideline heat turns up, they get flustered when the crowd turns restless. They start pressing on every throw, speeding up mechanics, overanalyzing, trying to prove they belong, not knowing that approach almost always backfires. But Shadur Sanders? He did something different. He slowed the game down. He centered himself. He didn't break. And that, more than anything else, told you exactly what kind of quarterback the Browns might have on their hands. Because people love to talk about talent, arm strength, accuracy, passing charts, all the things that can be measured on paper. But leadership, resilience, the ability to stay upright while your team collapses behind you, that can't be faked. And it can't be taught. The Browns were unraveling in real time. Double-digit penalties, missed assignments, veterans making rookie mistakes. And somehow, the rookie was the calmest man on the field. On a sideline full of frustration and chaos, Sanders didn't lose his head. He didn't lash out. When he missed throws, he owned it instantly. When others made mistakes, he quietly helped them reset. No drama. No deflection. Just accountability every single time. After the game, he said something simple but powerful. It's about rallying the guys. I didn't do a great job of that today. That's a veteran statement from a second-time starter in the NFL after enduring one of the ugliest losses of the season. No one would have blinked if Sanders blamed the muffed punt, or the dropped passes, or the aggressive play calling inside their own 30-yard line. He could have shifted the spotlight, even just slightly, but he didn't. He kept the full weight on his own shoulders on purpose, and the team noticed. Because leadership isn't about yelling louder. It's not pounding your chest after a first down. It's how you respond when the worst happens. Not when you're up 17, but when you're down, shorthanded, overmatched, and suffocating under pressure. That's what Sunday was, and that's when we saw something shift in Shadur. You could see it in his face. Eyes focused, not angry, not overhyped, just present. Engaged. Steady. That's rare. Especially from someone who's spent their entire life around cameras, praise, fame, and expectations. From someone who's constantly compared to his father, a Hall of Famer with swagger and gold jackets and Super Bowl rings. Shedeur's not his dad. He's quieter, more introspective. His confidence is real, but it's not loud. It lives in the details, in the way he studies, in the way he listens after bad drives, in the way he talks about setbacks as learning opportunities, not career-defining disasters. And make no mistake, Shedeur's been knocked down before. The transfer to Colorado, the doubters saying he only succeeded in college because of his father's shadow, the idea that his draft stock was inflated by hype, not tape, analysts questioning his ability to adapt to the NFL speed. He's heard all of it, he just hasn't let it define him. Because the truth is, Shedeur didn't enter the NFL thinking he'd get handed anything. He already knows what it feels like to be invisible. Just a few months ago, he was buried at the bottom of the Browns' depth chart, 4th string, taking scout team reps, wearing street clothes on Sundays, learning NFL defenses from the sidelines while 3 other quarterbacks ate up all the attention. No spotlight, no press conferences, just grind. But when his chance came late in preseason, after injuries piled up, he didn't flinch then either. He said, "Anything and everything is good for me." That quote tells you exactly how he sees the game. As a gift. Every snap, every throw, earned. That's the mentality of someone who's built for this. Not someone who expects a starting job, someone who's already built the foundation before the lights ever came on. And now, he's moving through his growing pains with humility and grit, not emotion and entitlement. Even on the field, you can see it in the little ways he moves, the way he funnels pressure with his feet, the way he calmly works through progressions, the way he bounces back after an incompletion. He's not out there losing his mind after one bad read or a delay of game. He recalibrates fast. And that's what separates the guys who survive in the NFL from the ones who flame out within 2 years. Because talent gets you drafted, but resilience keeps you in the league. Yes, he missed some throws. Yes, the Browns barely moved the ball in the second half. Yes, the scoreboard was ugly. But when you look beneath the numbers, what Shedeur showed, the calm, the composure, the self-awareness is exactly what teams hope for in a young quarterback. Not the result, not the stats, the presence. That's why the locker room didn't turn. That's why Stefanski didn't hesitate to name him starter again. That's why even Cleveland fans, used to being burned by hype, are starting to feel something that's been missing for too long. Belief. Belief that maybe for once they've got a quarterback who won't fold, who won't go Hollywood, who won't crumble under pressure. One who's learning how to lead the hard way from the bottom up, loss by loss, rep by rep. And just when that leadership was needed most, a sideline moment revealed exactly how far Sanders has already come. A veteran wide receiver lost his cool, but the rookie, he held the line. You could see it from a mile away. Jerry Jeudy was heated. The cameras caught him storming toward Shadur Sanders on the Browns sideline, clapping his hands, yelling, animated, frustrated. It wasn't just a stern conversation. It was a full-on confrontation on live TV, aimed squarely at a 1-year-old rookie quarterback, making only his second NFL start. And just like that, the spotlight shifted, not to the scoreboard, not to the drop-heavy offense, but to a moment that proved who the real leader on that field was. Because while Jeudy boiled over, Sanders didn't blink. No yelling back, no finger in the face, no matching energy. Just calm. Confused, maybe. Disrespected, definitely, but calm. A silent standoff where one player lost control and the other stood his ground without saying a word. This was the kind of moment that fractures teams. You've seen it before, public blow-ups between quarterbacks and receivers that go viral for all the wrong reasons. One bad look, and the locker room starts picking sides. Reputations shift, chemistry cracks, media narratives erupt. But not here. Because in that moment, the one with 70,000 fans watching and millions more online, Shadur Sanders chose leadership over ego. He could have met Jeudy's energy, could have shouted back, could have matched pride with pride and blown up the sideline. Many quarterbacks would have, many have. But Sanders? He defended his space. He stood up, and he stayed composed. And make no mistake, this wasn't just about football. This was about respect. Because let's talk about what Jerry Jeudy's really so mad about. Just 1 week earlier, Jeudy fumbled a 39-yard play that could have been one of Sanders' biggest highlights of the day. He caught the ball in the open field and decided to dance instead of finish the play. He fumbled. Drive over. Momentum gone. Sanders didn't say a word. Not to the cameras. Not to social media. Not even to Jeudy. He kept his cool, because that's what quarterbacks do. And yet, fast forward a week, it's Jeudy, the 6-year vet with playoff experience, calling out the rookie, showing him up on the sidelines, right after dropping passes and again failing to make plays. That's not just poor timing. That's a total lack of self-awareness. Jeudy had every opportunity to pull Sanders aside, quietly, with respect. Back of the bench, small chat, big brother moment, like a vet is supposed to do for a rookie quarterback under siege. But he chose showmanship over leadership. And that's exactly what makes Shedeur's response so important. Because he didn't stoop to Jeudy's level. He didn't turn the sideline into a spectacle. He understood, in real time, that matching disrespect only invites chaos. And with the cameras rolling and a team already falling apart, chaos was the last thing Cleveland needed. Instead, Sanders stood his ground and stared back. Not with anger, with presence. The unsaid message in his posture? You're not going to rattle me. And that message was loud. So loud, in fact, that even former NFL players watching the moment unfold didn't side with Jeudy. Guys like James Jones, a Super Bowl winning receiver himself, called it out immediately. Said James, if Shedeur would have met Jeudy where he was at, that would have been a sideline eruption. He's right. The tension was nuclear. A single word from Sanders could have ignited a blow-up. And it wouldn't just be messy, it would be looped on every sports network, dissected on every podcast, tweeted from every armchair expert dying to question Shedeur's maturity. But instead, Sanders walked away from that confrontation with something more important than a highlight or a comeback win. He walked away with the locker room's respect. Because everyone inside that huddle saw it too. They saw a 6-year vet lose his cool. and a second-start rookie keep his. They saw a man who dropped the ball literally and figuratively try to pass off the heat, and they saw a young quarterback turn that heat into fuel. Even if Jeudy didn't realize what he did, everyone else watching did. Sanders had a choice, and he made the hard one. And maybe the most interesting part of it all? Shadur didn't use that moment to grandstand later. When asked about the exchange, there was no subtweeting in interviews, no cryptic drama, no stoking the fire. Just business as usual. A missed throw is mine. The play didn't work? I'll watch the tape. No shots, just ownership. That's what Cleveland hasn't had in so long. A quarterback whose ego doesn't need protecting. A quarterback who's not interested in theatrics when the game gets hard. A quarterback who understands that being the face of the franchise means being the grown-up, even when you're the youngest one in the room. Some fans might see the Jeudy moment and think, it's just football. Guys get heated. Tempers flare. And sure, that's true. But leadership shines brightest when eyes are watching. And in a game full of darkness, blown opportunities, and noise on every level, Sanders handled that one flashpoint, that one test of composure, with more professionalism than the guy who's been in the league since 2020. Just a few months ago, no one was talking about Shadur Sanders. Not in Cleveland. Not in preseason power rankings. Not in ESPN segments or quarterback depth charts. He wasn't the starter. He wasn't the backup. He wasn't even the next man up. He was buried. Fourth quarterback on the Browns roster, scout team reps, practice jersey, sometimes not even dressing on game day. For a player coming in with a surname that echoed through college football headlines, being invisible in the pros hit different. A spotlight to silence overnight, from the cover of Sports Illustrated to sidelines and silence. And that's where most stories like this end. Some prospects never recover from slipping into NFL anonymity. Most guys drafted late, if they're even drafted at all, fade out before ever taking a real snap. They bounce from practice squad to practice squad, clinging to hope through 10-day contracts, traveling from city to city like football ghosts chasing a jersey that might never arrive. But Shadur didn't flinch. He didn't post cryptic messages. He didn't demand his shot. He didn't complain to the media. Instead, he did something that would define everything we'd later see on that field against the 49ers. He studied. He stayed ready. When asked about his role in the preseason after a key week of camp, he said something simple but revealing. They didn't have to let me play, so anything and everything is good for me. No entitlement, no shade, just quiet humility. A guy who'd already learned that in this league, nothing is guaranteed and everything is earned. And ironically, the only reason Shedeur even touched the field in preseason? Injuries. Quarterbacks ahead of him started dropping, and suddenly the coaches had no choice. They handed the ball to the rookie, not because he'd won the job, but because they ran out of bodies. Opportunity doesn't always knock at the perfect moment. Sometimes it kicks in the door during a crisis. And when Shedeur stepped on the field, he didn't just manage the moment, he made people stop and watch. Every rep, treated like gold. Every throw, intentional. Every drive, a test. Coaches noticed. So did teammates. And so did fans, some of whom only started paying attention when flashes of his college game started cutting through defenses in the preseason. Suddenly, those highlight reels from Colorado weren't just hype, they were habits Sanders brought with him. When the Raiders game finally handed him the starting job, people called it a fluke, a feel-good story, a media move. Until the win came, 209 yards, 1 pick. But more importantly, 3 explosive completions, 66, 52, 39 yards. He wasn't just checking the ball down, he was taking chances, standing in the pocket, delivering strikes, clock in his head, feet on time. He showed flashes you don't teach: poise, patience, pocket discipline, and touch. The league noticed. So did his opponents. After all, it's rare for a rookie QB making his first real start to have the command to go over the top like that, not once, not twice, but 3 times with confidence. But then again, maybe it's not that rare. Not if you remember how long he'd been waiting for this chance, how many months he spent in the shadows, knowing the cameras had moved on, but the dream hadn't. Shedeur's not the quarterback who appeared out of nowhere. He's the one who was ignored until he couldn't be anymore. And the funny part? He's not even supposed to be here yet. Most analysts pegged him as a 2025 story. 5th-round development guy. Practice reps. Learn under a vet-type quarterback. They said he needed time, refinement, and seasoning. But the NFL didn't wait. Injuries happened. Opportunities opened, teams faltered, and through it all, he'd already prepared himself for the storm. That's how he walked in and led the team. Not perfectly, not spectacularly, but confidently, like someone who'd mentally rehearsed every scenario 1,000 times. That's why coaches immediately circled back to him, not because of hype, not because of Dion, but because when it came time to ask, who can handle the moment now? The answer was already clear. And maybe the fans didn't realize it yet. Maybe the league doesn't fully see it either. But the Browns, the locker room, the staff, the players who've watched him grind behind the scenes, they recognize exactly what's happening. A young quarterback who was never supposed to start this year just quietly changed the conversation in Cleveland without flashy headlines, without tantrums, without drama, just resilience, just work. The game everyone was waiting for finally arrived. Cleveland, Sunday. Home field. Shadur Sanders versus the San Francisco 49ers defense. This was it. This was the moment the hype met reality. The moment all the doubters leaned in, ready to pounce. A rookie quarterback, 2 starts in, going up against arguably the best defense in the league. The test wasn't just about stats, it was about survival. And from the moment the ball was snapped, you could feel the pressure mount. The 49ers don't play chess, they play demolition. Their front 4 doesn't rush at attacks. And for the Browns' offensive line, it was a slow-motion collapse from the first quarter on. There were no clean pockets, little time to breathe, virtually no second chances. Still, Sanders stood in there. He didn't bail at the first sign of pressure. He didn't start chucking it around like a panicked rookie trying to be a hero. No, what he did was something far less glamorous and far more meaningful. He played smart, he played tough, he stayed composed. The final box score? 16 completions, 25 attempts, 149 yards, 1 touchdown. No huge numbers. But context is everything. What the box score won't show you is the circus he was operating inside. Cleveland's offense was a mess. By the end of the game, the Browns had just 60 total yards in the second half. 60. Against a team like San Francisco, that's surrender. But if you watched closely, you saw something else unfold. When the pressure came, Sanders didn't crack. When plays broke, he didn't flail. And when turnovers piled up once, he didn't show defeat. That matters. Especially when the situation around him was completely sabotaged. Let's break it down. Play 1. 4th and 1. Browns down 10-8. Deep in their own territory. Instead of trusting your rookie QB or even your running back, the coaches call a direct snap to the tight end. It fumbles. San Francisco hops on it. 9 plays later, touchdown. Browns fall behind. For good. That's not on Sanders. But he wore it like it was. Play 2. Early in the 4th quarter, the defense shows life finally. They force a needed stop. The season's still in reach. The ball is coming back. But then, Gage Larvadain muffs the punt. Ball goes straight to San Francisco on the 18-yard line. 6 plays later, another touchdown. You don't recover from that kind of implosion. That's 2 game-changing moments. 14 points gifted away, and none of it on the quarterback. Let that sink in. Because how many times have we seen young quarterbacks drown after just 1 or 2 mistakes that weren't theirs? Start pressing. Start forcing throws. Start falling apart publicly. Not just the box score, but their entire demeanor spirals. But Shadur stayed calm. Head up. Process steady. Even when the frustration mounted and it was visible, even when the crowd started getting restless, Sanders never once lashed out. He didn't look to the sideline with panic in his eyes. He didn't throw teammates under the bus, even though plenty of them were making mistakes worthy of it. He just kept going, step by step, 1 possession at a time. And that's exactly what veteran quarterbacks are expected to do. Steady the ship, lead with poise, take responsibility even for what's not yours. After the game, when reporters asked him about big missed plays like the throw just out of Jerry Jeudy's reach, he didn't deflect. He didn't blame the route. He said, "I calculated off. It was just a missed shot." Do you know how rare that is? Especially when you're dealing with a receiver who's already had 9 drops this season and publicly dressed you down just minutes earlier on the same sideline. Still, Shedeur didn't take the bait. Why? Because he's already figured out something most athletes never do. The game will test your performance, but life tests your character. And this game? It was the ultimate character test. The lights were on, the house was falling, and Shedeur didn't flinch. Even San Francisco noticed. Their defensive coordinator, Robert Saleh, had absolutely no reason to compliment an opposing rookie quarterback who just scored 8 points. But when asked, he called Sanders mobile, confident, with a big arm, and said he's only going to get better. That's not trash talk. That's respect from a team that just punched the Browns in the mouth and still left impressed by the guy trying to hold the team together. Because if you zoom out, this game wasn't about stats or slants or whether or not the Browns win this season. This was about a rookie quarterback being thrown into a fire and coming out of it not cleaner, but stronger. This wasn't a coronation. It was a rite of passage, not a highlight, but a message to the league. You're not going to break me. Not today. When a team gets blown out, most people don't go looking for silver linings. They look for blame. Coaches, receivers, quarterbacks, anyone responsible for the scoreboard. And when that team is the Cleveland Browns, let's be honest, people expect dysfunction. So, when the Browns lost 26-8 on their home turf, most of the media saw one thing: another collapse, another chapter in Cleveland's decades-long search for a real quarterback. But not everyone saw it that way. Because while the banners were caving and the playbook came apart, something else stood out, and it wasn't lost on those who matter most: opponents. Robert Saleh, defensive coordinator of the San Francisco 49ers, had every reason to dismiss Shadur Sanders. His defense just sacked him, collapsed the pocket on nearly every drive, and held the Browns to 1 touchdown. But after the game, when asked about Sanders, his response was immediate. He's mobile, got a big arm, tremendous confidence, he made some real throws against Vegas. You can tell he's only going to get better. That's not fluff. That's not pity. That's enemy praise. From a defense that's made a career out of wrecking quarterbacks and didn't expect a rookie to withstand the intensity. Because what Saleh saw wasn't perfection, it was composure. He saw a quarterback who got hit, pressured, out-schemed, and never unraveled. No desperation, no panic deep balls, no forgettable rookie tantrums. Just focus, even when the game spiraled beyond reach. And for a team like San Francisco, that matters. The league respects players who take the hits and keep swinging, not the ones who put up pretty numbers against bad defenses. What impresses veterans is how you look when everything goes wrong. And in Cleveland, everything went wrong except Shedeur. He stayed steady mentally. He answered questions post-game with maturity, even in the face of a public sideline blow-up and a loss that would break most veteran QBs. He didn't crack, and that, slowly but surely, began to shift the narrative. Around the league, people took notice. Analysts, who just 2 weeks earlier were saying Sanders should be on ice until 2025, were now saying things like, "He deserves time, you can build around this." Opposing coaches, who hadn't even bothered to scout him a month ago, now assigning real defensive attention. Respect. Film review. Adjustments. Veteran players from other teams? Quiet nods. Subtle praise. Because they know most rookies don't carry themselves like this under pressure. And then there's the locker room. This is where respect really lives, not online, not on clip compilations, but behind closed doors in meetings and walkthroughs and sideline huddles. And that's where you started to hear the shift. Players who were on the fence about him bought in. Veterans who weren't sure if he was NFL ready, now they're defending him against critics. Receivers, even the ones who got heated, realizing they might be catching passes from this kid a lot longer than they expected. Because Sanders didn't just show flashes of arm talent, he showed leadership under duress. He didn't throw teammates under the bus, even after dropped passes and mental errors. He didn't shade the coaching staff when aggressive play calls backfired. He didn't blame special teams. He said, "I could have done more." That kind of accountability, it lands. Not just with fans, with every single guy in that locker room trying to gut through a chaotic season and looking for someone who can handle the weight. And here's why that matters. The NFL is full of quarterbacks with raw tools, strong arms, quick feet, big resumes. But those tools mean nothing when the storm hits. What separates the good from the great is grace under fire and the ability to take hits, criticism, and finger-pointing without turning bitter or broken. That's what Sanders showed on Sunday, not some breakout stat line or highlight reel touchdown. What he showed was character. And for Browns fans watching through 2 decades of false starts, draft busts, and broken promises under center, that may be the most valuable trait of all. Because Cleveland doesn't need another potential star. They've had those. They need someone who can weather the mess, steady the ship, and command the room no matter how dark it gets. And Sunday proved he might already be that guy. In a league that eats rookies alive, in a city that's been betrayed by hype over and over again, Sanders hasn't demanded respect. He's earning it drive by drive, snap by snap, from coaches, from veterans, from fans who've been afraid to believe again. Respect isn't handed out in this league, it's dragged out of the dirt. And Shadur Sanders is doing exactly that. But the NFL doesn't stop to pat you on the back, because next week, he faces another rookie. One with the spotlight Shedeur always wanted. A quarterback battle that's much more than just a matchup. It's a battle of destinies. Next Sunday might look like just another game on the schedule. Browns versus Titans, two teams with losing records. Nothing fancy, no playoff implications, no national spotlight. But if you know what to look for, this matchup isn't just football. It's a mirror, a clash of identities, a battle between potential and expectation. On one side, Cam Ward, the Hasson overall pick in the draft, the golden boy, Tennessee's franchise quarterback. Big money, big pressure, all eyes on him. On the other side, Shadur Sanders, 5th-round pick, passed over, slept on, dragged from 4th on the depth chart to unexpected starter, not because of hype, but because he refused to go away. They're both rookies, both trying to turn their franchises around. But make no mistake, they're not walking into this game as equals. Ward was handed a kingdom. Sanders is still building one with bare hands. And that changes everything. Ward was marketed, packaged, promoted before he ever threw an NFL pass. His jersey was selling before training camp, his face on billboards, every stat overanalyzed, every throw critiqued. Shedeur, he was told to sit, to wait, to earn every inch of respect. His playbook didn't come with lights or cameras. It came with repetitions, silence, and belief no one could give him. He had to find it for himself. So make no mistake, next Sunday might not shake the standings, but it could redefine two careers. Because if Sanders shows up in that game calm, collected, commanding the offense, playing with the same poise he's shown, even in ugly losses, he doesn't just beat a rookie. He beats the system that said he didn't belong there in the first place. This is more than a duel under center. It's a showdown between projection and perseverance. Ward had the path rolled out for him. Sanders had to carve his with a dull blade. And for Shedeur, this is more than just another test. It's a chance to flip the script entirely. No one will care about his draft position if he outplays the #1 pick on live TV. No one will talk about dropped passes or busted coverages if he marches the Browns downfield with control and composure. This is his moment, not loud, not flashy, but exactly the kind of moment he's been preparing for since the day he was buried at the bottom of the roster. And here's what's even more compelling. Sanders doesn't need to put up 400 yards or 5 touchdowns to win over this locker room or the league. He just needs to do what he's already proven he can do. Command the room, play clean, handle the pressure, extend drives, make throws that say, you can build around this. Because once again, the expectations will be on the other guy. Cam Ward is expected to perform. He's expected to win. But Shedeur? Still the underdog in almost every conversation, and that's exactly where he's most dangerous. No distractions, no hype, no gimmicks. Just a quarterback who's been tested through adversity and still shows up, bruised but unbroken. In a lot of ways, Cam Ward represents what Shadur Sanders was supposed to be. The projected top 5 draft pick. The surefire star. The headline grabber. But next week, that spotlight flips again. Because when their cleats hit the turf and they both line up behind center, here's the truth. Only one of them has been forged in chaos. Only one has faced down angry veterans, swallowed midseason blame, and stood quietly in the fire of a 26-8 blowout and walked out more respected than when he walked in. And now, he's not just fighting for a win, he's fighting for permanence. Because if Shedeur shines against Tennessee outthinking, outplaying, and outperforming football's chosen rookie suddenly, the Browns don't just have a quarterback, they have their future. And the Browns fan base? They know heartbreak, they know false hope. They've been burned by promise after promise. But even in their skepticism, they're watching. Because Sunday could finally be the start of something real. Not just a quarterback duel, but a declaration. That Shadur Sanders, the long shot, the overlooked, the doubted, isn't just trying to be part of the NFL. He's here to change it. The 26 8 loss hurt, no question. But what Sanders showed through the noise, the criticism, and the chaos revealed something no box score could capture. He might already be the Browns' most important win of the season. The scoreboard said loss. The fans walked out disappointed. Analysts called it another rebuild year. But somewhere beneath it all, something deeper was happening. Because in a 26-8 home field collapse, the Cleveland Browns may have finally found their leader. Not in highlight plays. Not in press conferences. But in the quiet way, a rookie quarterback with the world against him stood tall when everything around him fell apart. Shadur Sanders didn't win the game, but he earned something far more valuable. He earned trust. He earned belief. And for the first time in a long time, he gave Browns fans something they haven't truly had hope. Not the kind that comes from TikTok clips or training camp hype, but the kind that's forged in fire, because the NFL doesn't care about your story. It cares about your grit. And on that field, Sanders showed us who he really is, not when things were easy, but when his team was gasping for air. Dropped passes, broken plays, missed blocks, public sideline confrontations, a top-tier defense exposing every weakness around him. And yet, he never unraveled. He never caved. He never stopped leading. Through all of it, the unfair criticism, the muffed punts, the silent stares on the sideline, Shedeur kept showing up, kept speaking up, kept owning his mistakes, kept shouldering more than his share of blame. And that's what real quarterbacks do. They don't disappear when the lights get hot. They don't deflect when the game spirals. They take it all in, and then they rise piece by piece. And that's exactly what he did. Look at how far he's come. From buried on the depth chart to being named the starter. From silent scout team sessions in August to leading huddles, fielding media questions, and standing toe-to-toe with one of the best defenses in football. He wasn't supposed to play this year, but injuries opened a door. And instead of freezing, he walked through it and never looked back. A week ago, he was a wild card. Now, he's being talked about as the grown-up in the room. Even veterans who went after him in the heat of battle, guys like Jerry Jeudy, are realizing what fans, coaches, and opponents are all starting to see. This rookie's not here to flash and fade. He's here to stay. And that matters. Because in Cleveland, a city carved by quarterback heartbreak, the standards are different. Fans don't need perfect. They don't need viral. They need real. They need someone who owns their role, grows in public, carries scars, and still shows up with purpose. That's who Shadur Sanders is becoming. And this loss? It might have sealed that truth. Because in the most unforgiving league in the world, respect is the rarest currency. It isn't granted on draft day. It isn't handed to you by legacy. It's carved out of chaos, built through pain, earned by showing up when nobody expects you to make it. And that's exactly what Shedeur did. While others yelled, he listened. While others crumbled, he stood. While the Browns collapsed, he matured. And maybe, just maybe, that's the long-term win Cleveland has been waiting for. Because for the first time in years, it doesn't just feel like the Browns are giving a young quarterback a chance. It feels like they're handing him the keys. No gimmicks, no illusions. Just a quarterback who's been tested by the pressure and walked out sharper, hungrier, and completely unbroken. That's not the kind of progress that shows up in Monday's box score. It's the kind that transforms a franchise by Christmas. And when Sanders was asked about where he stands now, he didn't make it about haters, headlines, or highlight reels. He said this: in life, you've got to understand how quickly things come or how quickly they can be taken away. I'm never comfortable. Let that sink in. That's the mindset of someone fighting for everything, not just his next snap, but the trust of his teammates, his coaches, his city. Because no, he's not polished yet. But he doesn't have to be. What he has: resilience, responsibility, leadership that can't be taught. It can only be earned. And Shadur Sanders is earning it by the week. So, yes, the Browns lost on Sunday, the scoreboard said so. But in the fire of that chaos, under pressure most young quarterbacks would buckle beneath. Cleveland may have found something even more valuable. A quarterback worth building around. A future worth believing in. And a leader who might just change the story once and for all. Don't underestimate what's happening in Cleveland. Because while the league keeps asking, is he ready? Shadur Sanders just keeps answering the question that really matters.